Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're watching from around the world. Welcome to today's Tanzu webinar. Today we'll be talking about Tanzu application catalog, and we do have a great speaker here today. But before I bring him into the screen, I do want to just go over some housekeeping items. First, we'd love to keep this as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions for us, please submit them below using the Ask a Question tab, and we'll do our best to answer all of your questions live today. In addition, we know that you guys are here to hear from us, but we'd love to hear from you. So if you have any feedback or any topics that you'd like to hear in future events, hit the rate this tab also below the presentation screen. Let us know how we did and what you'd like to hear in the future. Now, without further ado, we'll bring in today's fabulous speaker, Brad Bach. Hey, Brad, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good, AJ. Thanks for having me this morning. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about Tanzu application catalog. Just a
Absolutely,
little
it's an
bit.
honor to have you here.
Great. So a little bit about myself. I've been working with Bitnami and Tanzu application catalog for, going on a decade now, with a couple breaks here and there. But long history with the Bitnami team. I started at VMware in 2018, and I've bounced around to a couple different business units, but always thinking a lot about modern apps, open source, and so thrilled to be back with my Bitnami team. So today, let's see. Today we're talking about Tanzu application catalog. So we're going to go over a few topics, kind of contextualize what this product is in today's kind of modern apps architecture. Talk a little bit about security and developer experience and kind of some of the trade-offs that do or don't happen between those two things. And then we'll talk specifically about Tanzu application catalog itself. The enterprise version of the Bitnami open source software you know and love, and how enterprise developers and other groups are using that. And then I'll take you guys through what it looks like, and then we'll have some time for Q&A, hopefully, although no need to wait till the end for that. Please, chime in anytime with any interesting questions that come up, AJ. So kind of getting started with the contextualization, looking at a modern applications architecture that looks something like this or similar to it. And open source software tends to act as building blocks for your modern apps, where you can just stitch together different pieces like a database, a streaming service, a service mesh, an API gateway, or a whole host of other components you need to build, or that you need as you build your business logic for your app that does some useful thing for your customers. And developers really love this. They enjoy, a lot of options and flexibility. They get access to a broader community of innovation. And it's really hard to imagine a world today in which developers either have to live without these modern application elements or build everything themselves. It's almost impossible given the speed of modern business. And developers love having these capabilities so much that you really can't tell them today that they shouldn't make use of these options. We're well past that point of debating, whether open source software is necessary or not, whether you're whatever kind of setting you're working in. But about the trade-offs or the kind of friction that can happen between developers who are really focused on speed and productivity, and DevOps and platform teams who are super focused in on security and compliance and risk. So today you're navigating through this landscape, and we think you'd be doing or trying to do one or all of these things. And if you're a software development leader, you want to provide your developers with seamless access to prepackaged open source software. You don't want them spending time on tedious packaging and lifecycle management activities. You want them to focus on the innovation that they're doing, the business logic, and you want them to have all of these other things at their fingertips. And you want to accelerate your team's time to market for your software. the business demands rapid innovation. And this open source software exists in a way that's there to speed that up. But if your developers are having to package software themselves or build things from scratch, that's slowing them down. On the other side, you've got DevOps and platform engineering, and they want to ensure that the sovereignty or the safety of their data, their valuable IP. They want to mitigate upstream vulnerabilities in the software supply chain. They want to see into all of the open source components that go into their environments, their production environments, and any dependencies that come along that could become vulnerable. And they want to standardize on, as few sources of open source software as possible, or if they can standardize on one, that would be ideal. So these priorities historically have competed with each other. You might see this in scenarios like we hear about all the time from our customers. The dev team quickly develops an important new capability encompassing multiple open source containers and microservices, but the compliance and security review happens close to shipping. And by the time that comes, the conversation with IT or security is not going well. There's a long list of requirements that weren't met, and that means significant refactoring or other new work. But that deadline to ship is days or weeks away. So you see situations like the business unit getting exceptions and assuming the risk and using unvetted open source software or non-standard packaging and not having a plan for lifecycle management of these kind of supporting cast of characters that are deploying with their apps. And this happens across large organizations many times and many teams, and pretty soon you have a severe problem with your organizational security posture. So culturally, this manifests as this classic friction between developers and ops. Growing out of this situation, it's seen as a zero-sum game where one's loss is the other's gain. And the general assumption is that improvement, security, and compliance comes at the expense of ease of use and productivity. I've seen a lot of customers take different approaches to solving this problem, but the solution's often unsatisfactory to everyone involved. They're doing things like hiring highly paid engineers whose only job is building and maintaining infrastructure to package open source software, or forcing individual developers to provide care and feeding to pipelines that are maintaining software that they didn't build and is not really differentiated in their applications. So that's the basis for why we created Tanzu Application Catalog. It's meant to alleviate this friction. Our main buyer is not the developer who ends up using the software, because frankly, they're already using it. And we'll get to why in just a minute. But it's central IT and security teams that are looking to improve their organization's security and compliance posture without compromising the developer experience and creating friction or giving developers a reason to get exceptions to the rules. And so, our motto that kind of underpins everything we do is to be loved by developers and trusted by ops. So what is Tanzu Application Catalog? Well, in short, it's the enterprise version of Bitnami. That's why I mentioned that developers are already using it. It's super popular, and I'm sure many of you attending this webinar would already know about Bitnami. If you've built apps that packaged in some open source capability that you deployed with the Helm chart, you almost certainly have used Bitnami. So Tanzu Application Catalog adds enterprise capabilities on top of what you get from the community catalog, and it makes them usable in an environment that demands a really high degree of security, compliance, and accountability. It's delivered as a cloud service that you access, and you use it to build your own private catalog of custom packaged open source apps. So we let you customize those apps and choose your own Linux distro. And then we build and continuously maintain them on a Salsa 3 compliant pipeline. We run them through a battery of tests in Kubernetes and other environments and give you the results of those tests. We sign them and ship them to your own private registry for you to use in your production environments. little background on Bitnami. So, some of my my colleagues who are also some of my closest friends, some of them have been at Bitnami for over 15 years, working on this continuously. Um, we drive our strength lies in our experience, our expertise, and our scale. We've collectively got thousands of hours of experience which have accumulated while building Bitnami, all of which is put behind our enterprise product. So historically, Bitnami's business has been in paid partnerships with the world's leading cloud platforms. And we ship this software in the public cloud marketplaces where it's free to the end user. And that provides a lot of value to the cloud providers who are looking for a source of high quality software that's built as cloud images and containers and Helm charts in many cases. That they wanted these with absolutely no additional configuration needed to get a stable running application in their cloud. All of the OS and underlying bits are pre-configured and they just work. And that's kind of what Bitnami's been known for a long time before there was even a such thing as cloud. When containers and Kubernetes caught fire, we were one of the first companies to use that technology at scale. And today we ship Helm charts in multiple locations with over 50 million pulls per month. And we still maintain those partnerships with cloud providers and drive over 2 billion hours of compute time for them annually. So when we were acquired by VMware, it became immediately apparent, given this sudden view into a company that's got all of the world's largest companies as customers, that there was a huge opportunity to help enterprises with big challenges like I was just discussing. So being diligent about packaging software and keeping it up to date is wonderful, but to make enterprise customers happy, they needed us to show our work. And so that's how Tanzu Application Catalog came about. So let's look into some more details. So this is our kind of super, complex, like high level or 30,000 foot view of what this looks like. On the top left, you can see our catalog, which matches what's available in Bitnami. It's a library of over 250 open source apps for you to choose from. Everything from services that you'd bind your applications to cutting edge technologies related to like artificial intelligence, for example, business apps you deploy for capabilities like blogging, and specialized components for your Kubernetes cluster, things like sealed secrets. And as I'll show in a minute, you can choose the apps you need from your catalog through our product user interface. And these are fully functional, ready to deploy applications in the catalog. They're packaged with all the dependencies. So for instance, if you choose a Harbor Helm chart, we put all of the additional containers that are deployed with Harbor, into your registry, and you've got a Helm chart that can deploy that. And I choose that example because I know Harbor deploys a bunch of things together with the actual application container. And once you've chosen the applications you need, you get to customize the apps as well. So you can choose the form factor, whether you want it just as a container, or you can have the Helm chart that bundles all of the dependencies. You can have it built as a VM. And then you can also choose the base operating system. We provide, different Linux distributions that you can have your software built on, and always have the latest version kept up to date. So like our own Photon OS, Red Hat UBI, Debian, and Ubuntu are some of the out-of-box options. And then you can also, if you have a base image, a lot of enterprise customers have what they call a golden image that's maintained with certain requirements that are met. Sometimes that makes it more difficult to package open source software on top. You essentially give us an endpoint for us to monitor for updates, and then we will build all of the software that you want on top of that golden image. In addition to these, we can also now do advanced user-defined customizations, application-specific customizations that give you the ability to add things like TLS certificates, You can install app-specific plugins. You can register package manager repositories, other things like that, which we built because a lot of customers were finding that they were getting this software. It was signed, full attestation, full SBOM, everything they needed, but then they had to run another build to add these things, which kind of voided the signature and other things. So, sometimes people are a little skeptical when we say, hey, this software can run in production. But when you add in that app-specific customization, it's truly ready to go through your staging and your tests and production environments as it arrives in your registry. So once you've chosen these apps, you built them, they've been through or they've been through the build process. They go through a battery of tests. The tests are application specific, so they're designed to ensure that the functionality of whatever that container is does what it's meant to do, and it does it in multiple supported Kubernetes environments. And you get the results of those tests, so that it's passed. Even some like basic, pen testing type of things that are specific to certain applications where it's known to be a problem. Thinking of like a basic like SQL injection attack or something like that. Some of those things are even included in these tests. And then, that test report together with the software bill of materials, the VEX documentation, if you're using Photon, a CVE scan report, all of these things are provided to you alongside the open source software. And you can access them as OCI artifacts in your registry, or you can access them through the Tanzu application catalog user interface, which I'll show you in just a minute. And then, what makes our build pipeline special is that Bitnami is one of the things that I just fell in love with this company from the very beginning, is that they automate everything. And so, they've just gotten a phenomenal amount of automation behind this. And it's constantly looking at all of these upstream projects, everything from the application down to the base image. And when there's something, either an update to the app or anything becomes vulnerable and patched in the base image, that change is automatically applied across all of the affected software, and builds are pushed to your registry in a very short time frame. So that's kind of it. It doesn't leave you hanging like with containers. If there's a vulnerability, you have to start mitigating that as quickly as possible, and having that fast update makes a huge difference, and especially given that it's been tested already. The update has been tested in Kubernetes environments with your customizations and all of these different things before it even gets to you. So just kind of a different view of the same process, how it looks, end to end. We build the application from source. We package in your customizations. We scan it. We generate SBOMs. We give you the antivirus scans, which, that might sound silly, but it's a requirement for a lot of customers. When I say sound silly, for Linux, it seems like a lot of people don't necessarily do antivirus scans nowadays, but it is actually a requirement for many customers. So you just get that out of the box. We run it through a lot of tests on Docker and multiple Kubernetes environments. We sign it using cosign and notation. And we publish it, in a way that gives you easy access to the docs and makes it super easy to use. So, just kind of going through, the things that you get, kind of encompassing, or just wanted to take the security story and kind of tell it in a concise way. Just to kind of understand, how does this mitigate open source or software supply chain security issues? So, starting from left to right, we are continuously updating the software. So you get any patch that's available, just as I just mentioned, Developers don't need to worry about getting the applications patched. They can just focus on their software. We've got out-of-the-box support for VMware Photon, which is a lightweight base image that we recommend because we maintain it ourselves. It's got minimal CVEs that are not fixed at any given point in time, and so your environments will have a lot less false positives, essentially, like CVEs that might trigger in a scanner, but maybe which aren't exploitable. We give you an SBOM in the ISO standard SPDX format. We deliver these SBOMs not just for container images, but also for Helm charts and VMs, which is great because, especially with the Helm charts, you're looking at the holistic application view, and you're getting all of the the libraries, everything that's in that app, all of the containers, not just individual containers, and it kind of ties together all of those things that are running together as a kind of big A application. And finally, if you're using our Photon OS, another reason to use that is it gives you VEX documentation. So what that does is basically, anything that it remains in the image that would trigger a security scanner as a CVE, there's a corresponding explanation of what's going on there. Whether the impact is, whether the image itself is affected or not affected. And if it is, it points you to information about how to ensure that your software is packaged in a way that anything that remains in your image is not exploitable. And what this does is it eliminates false positives, essentially. A lot of different ways to approach that problem of things that remain in images in the base OS that may not have been deemed actually vulnerable by the upstream distro, but they are still there, and they're still triggering your security scanner to have a CVE. And so you might have an image that looks like it has a bunch of CVEs, and you don't know what's going on, whether they're actually exploitable or not. With Photon, we have a very minimal number of those remaining, and for anything that is, they each have a VEX metadata entry, and so you can automate that process, machine readable, and you can build policies around shipping images to production that have VEX metadata explaining that anything in your image is not exploitable. And finally, you've got our expertise. We've been hardening. We've been doing hardening and best practices. We've developed them over the past several years that we've been really focused on enterprise. And we've been shipping these to customers that are highly regulated, like the federal government. We have a lot of customers, banks, and telecommunications industry across the world. So it's always a give and take. We get feedback from customers, especially like the federal government has been a great partner, and they tell us what they need, and we know that that's kind of the gold standard. So we build those features into Tanzu App Catalog to make sure that they're safe and secure for those customers. And so just wanted to cover, security and developer experience, that kind of zero-sum game we were talking about. So your developers, or if you're a developer, they're already likely using Bitnami packages. I think one of the best things about Tanzu Application Catalog is it kind of gives you the best of both worlds. Your developers like these packages because they've got great documentation. There's a really good breadth of software to choose from. And once you become familiar with one of them, you'll find there's a consistent methodology used behind the packaging, the documentation between all of them. So with Tanzu Application Catalog, you can do a pretty seamless transition to the enterprise version. There's hardly any learning curve, if any, and because even if your organization chooses a different Linux distro than the one you were using with Bitnami, which is always Debian, the experience for you is almost identical. If you're using open source software in production environments, your dev team probably spending a lot of time, a lot of effort on activities like trying to rebase open source components on approved golden images, ensuring that, that service your app depends on keeps working with the latest updates. And with Tanzu Application Catalog, these activities are automated. Even those custom build steps that you used to have to do, every time you're updating, installing certificates or other things, those are offloaded to Tanzu Application Catalog, and they're run through that battery of tests before they get to your registry. And finally, we lean on using distros, because we found that distros make day two operations a lot smoother than if you're trying to figure out how to upgrade an app that was built on a distro list container or base image that may not have the necessary libraries that it needs. So our customers, we've been back and forth with that, but at the end of the day, our enterprise customers consistently want a distro. And so we maintain a really great one ourselves, but we also know that there are requirements. And so we basically meet you where you're at. We don't require, big changes that make day-to-day operations more difficult. And so working with your support is another big benefit of using Tanzu Application Catalog. When you're getting piecemeal support from a lot of different places, a lot of them have their own processes, and it can make fixing problems really difficult, and especially in an already difficult situation when you're having a problem like an application is not deploying as it should, something's not updating. So with Tanzu Application Catalog, you can count on us to partner with you. We give you assistance getting your developers set up with the open source software they need, get them deployed, and we stand by our product if you're having trouble. We really take good care of our customers and users, which are our developers. And finally, your applications or your developers use Tanzu Application Catalog to build repeatable and efficient development processes. So standardization really helps them build efficient kind of golden path to production with these pre-approved artifacts that cover a wide range of use cases. So developers love that because it's easy to get going as if you're just going and getting software from Docker Hub. But IT is happy because all the software that they're getting is compliant from the minute they start working on these new apps, and there's no fight at the end when they're trying to go to production and they're not compliant. So just a quick recap of use cases, things that we see customers using these for. So if you're reducing your security risks posed by open source software, you're improving compliance posture and security decision making, you're standardizing on a single source of open source software across multiple teams, you're giving your developers prepackaged open source software that they can use to rapidly innovate, you're automating day zero and lifecycle management of open source software, and you're streamlining these vendor dependencies into one consistent source. So I think AJ is going to share some links at the end of this, but just wanted to throw these up here for just a moment before we run into a demo and show you what this all looks like. Before we do that too, are there any questions that we can cover now before I go into a quick demo?
Yeah, we do have one question here for you, Brad, and I'll read it out loud for you.
Okay.
How frequently are the applications in Tanzu Application Catalog verified and updated?
Oh, great question. So we have the way it works is our automated system is basically looking at the totality of CVEs, and we also have a graph of all of the dependencies that are built into all of the software in our library. And so when say a new CVE comes out, and we know what library it targets, we know what are all the affected applications where that library is present or affected. Or say if there's a vulnerability in an upstream project, like the named project on a open source container, like a Postgres. Anytime that happens, the minute that a patch is released, our system automatically ingests that and goes through that process of deploying like hundreds or thousands of clusters and and testing all this stuff and pushing updates very rapidly. In the absence of any vulnerability or version update or other reason to update the software, then we also have a regular SLA of every 30 days. It just gets rebuilt and pushed.
Thanks, man. I think those are the questions for right now.
Okay, great. So now's the live demo. Let's show you what we've been talking about here. So this is the user interface for. Are you guys seeing the live demo?
Yes, I see.
Got
Everything looks good.
Good. Okay. So so this is the user interface for Tanzu application catalog. You can see the name of the application, the base image it was built on, the release version, the status. You can see, like in this case, something that's currently looks like it's building. The last time it was released, and then you can click into any of these for the details. You can filter these by the type. So if I just want to see things that I'm consuming as container images, I can do that. I can show things that I'm consuming as Helm charts. Another interesting thing here is that I can filter into different base operating system images. So you can see I've got things here that are packaged on Photon OS. I've got these two containers that are packaged on Red Hat UBI 8, one on Red Hat UBI 9. So what you can see is you might have the same app packaged on different Linux distros, because we've discovered as large companies have different development teams with different requirements. We've got our base images here. So these are all of the different ones that I've built software in this library on. I don't have any custom ones, but this is where you can actually update or add your own golden image if you've got one. We've got registries. So we have a registry that I deployed, my own harbor. If you don't have your own registry, if that's going to be a problem for you, we actually will host a registry for you. So you've got a hosted registry here. And you can see all of the deleted ones. This is the library. So this is actually available publicly, like without being logged into the software. So I can see here all of the different possible titles that I can pick. And if I click into them, I can see, for example, how they look on the different upstream distributions. And again, if you're looking at Photon OS, you see that the numbers are very low here. And each of these things, as I'll show you in just a moment, would come with a VEX entry that would explain what's going on there with these things that were identified by the scanners. And finally, you have the ability to add customization. So you can essentially, take your app-specific customizations and apply those during the build process for your individual applications. So let's jump into an individual app here and see what that looks like. I'm going to do Concourse because I've already downloaded some of the documents for that. So you can see here, I've got links to the docs. We've got multi-registry support. So if you have this in multiple registries, you can actually change these commands here that you can copy and paste to use the software itself. We've got all of the different kinds of tags that you might want to use as you're consuming this software. We've got rolling and immutable tags. We give you these test results, so so you can see what actually happened. If you want to go back and check or verify, or you want auditability, you can see that this software, the latest release, passed all of these tests. And then down here, we've got all of these build time reports. So, things like the source container that we use to build, the trigger information. So somebody asked, about, how often do we update the software? We actually give you information also about why this was updated. So in this case, this was updated because Concourse was updated. And we also tell you it fixes a CVE. So this helps you remediate this quickly because you can automate the process of showing whether a known fix is available for a particular container in your catalog. We've got this antivirus scan report. We have asset spec, which is kind of a legacy thing before we started using SBOMs. We've got the security scan. So lots of information here. And I want to kind of highlight two of them. One is the SPDX, the SBOM. So you can download that. And we also have a visualization tool. And I know this is very complex, but this is kind of the first step. I mentioned before that we have this software knowledge graph. And we're actually making this do more and more things for you as a customer. And so it's going to become increasingly important. This visualization is kind of the first, the first implementation of this really awesome software knowledge graph that we have. And so, if you want some more details on what that is, or if you're a customer, please get in touch with us and we'll give you a demo of what this is capable of. But for now, this is the first implementation, and it shows you, exactly what's in that application, and you can hover over that and get the open source license and some other information about it. One of the nice things here is that going back to our library, if I do the same thing for a Helm chart, I'm also getting an SBOM. All of these things down here, these dependencies are the containers that are deployed by this Helm chart. So I can get an SBOM, I can get that same information for all of them, but I can also see the bill of materials for the Helm chart itself. And this is going to be complicated, but as I'll show you in a second, you've got this is basically built off the JSON version of this, and so you're able to see exactly what is in each of these these artifacts that you're deploying in your environments, and you're able to build automation around that. Again, there's a list of all of the packages and libraries that are in this, in the containers in the Helm chart. One of the important things just to quickly cover is our regulated customers. We show you here, like this is automatically populated with the information for your specific registry. A lot of our heavily regulated customers are using this software in air-gapped environments where they're mirroring software from our registry to their own like DMZ, or they're carrying it across an air gap and on a DVD or something like that. And so we've got this solution that we created called Chart Syncer that actually enables you to move your charts to different places and update them. So you're always able to use kind of standard, Helm deployment commands for the registry that you're pulling from in the environment that you're actually operating in. And I also just wanted to cover that the documentation for this, like I've got a Photon OS image. I mentioned before, one of the reasons why developers love Bitnami is, extensive documentation. And, everything here is exhaustively documented. So you've got all of your parameters, your environment variables, all of the things that you need to successfully operate this software are right here. And we do this in a consistent way across all of the different applications that we publish. So another thing I wanted to just cover real quick is, what this, we mentioned, or I mentioned before, we talked about SBOMs and VEX metadata. So here's that SBOM for Concourse that I showed you the visual version of. And so you can see here, pretty long document, but it's meant to be kind of machine readable, something that you can build automation around. And as I mentioned, we're going to come out with some really awesome capability to automate that for you in the not too distant future. And so I wanted to highlight here, this is the scan result, and this is a vulnerability that's present, that's triggered in that concourse, right? So here's the CVE, and so now you might be asking yourself, hey, is this exploitable or not? Let me give you all the information about here in the scan about where to find information about it. But then if I go to the VEX document, that CVE is listed here, and there's information about it, including the status. So this particular one is not affected. But it doesn't just tell you that, it actually gives you a summary of why it's not affected. So you can go through this, you can check, make sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's when it comes to these vulnerabilities. But again, you can also build automation around this. So you can say, I don't want anything that's got a CVE present or it's triggering the scanner with the status of known affected. And so that helps you kind of reduce some of the work that happens and some of the difficulty around managing scans and false positives and things like that. So one more thing I want to do before we open it up to any more Q&A is just kind of show the process of adding a new application, because that kind of gives you a sense of what's available. By the way, I also wanted to quickly point out that if you've got a Tanzu application catalog subscription, your developers might not want to add a certain app to the paid catalog right away. Maybe they need to prototype something, and so they don't want to commit to doing that. We give you some additional information about the free open source Bitnami software here. You can actually add that to your catalog, and you still get the JSON the SBOM and some other information about that software. And then you can go, say you build some application that uses one of these Bitnami images, because it's just a one-to-one replacement. When it's time to push that to production, you can add the enterprise version to your catalog, run through some tests to make sure that everything is working the same way, and then quickly kind of get that last mile to production. So let's look at adding a new application. This is where you choose, I just want the basic free open source Bitnami or the custom, where I get to select things like if I want a Kubernetes app, which would be a Helm chart or a container, or I want a virtual machine. So let's try building our app on Photon 4 because I want that VEX metadata. I can choose my format here. So if I want a Helm chart, and let's pick Apache Spark. I choose the registry I have available to me, so I might have added several registries. In this case, I want to use the hosted one. I'll give it a name. And the last step here is adding it to the catalog, which I'll go ahead and do. And our system will get to adding that to your catalog, and it'll be available when it's completed. All right. With that, I think I covered the things that are in my list here. So would love to just get any other questions that came up.
We did get another question here, Brad, for you. And the question is, where can I deploy the, and I think you talked about it here, but let's cover it one more time, is where can I deploy the applications I get from Tanzu Application Catalog?
Where can you deploy the applications that you get?
Yes.
That's actually a good question too. So you can deploy them in any Kubernetes cluster or Docker or container OCI compliant container runtime. So no restrictions on where they run. They're tested to work in multiple environments. They're tested on endpoints or like Kubernetes clusters like OpenShift and different cloud Kubernetes environments, because there are subtle differences between these things. Things like OpenShift, for example, has some requirements, security requirements, best practices that are enforced, like running a container as non-root. Well, that's how we package our software, because we've been through this process of hardening them. And if you look in the docs, you can actually see specifics about the steps that we took. But so all that stuff is baked in, and the software is actually tested in multiple environments. But generally speaking, any OCI compliant runtime, a container runtime, or Kubernetes cluster is supported. Oh, same thing for VMs, for example. We've got OVA VMs, so any vSphere environment you can run as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Brad. Those are the questions that we received, but I do have a question for you, Brad. Where can we reach out to you, or if we have any questions, where can folks reach you or the team?
Well, I mean, if you've got questions, I don't know if we can put my email up on here. I'm happy to answer any questions anytime. You can find me on LinkedIn, or if you go to the Tanzu Application Catalog website, there's a contact form towards the bottom of the screen there. So you can, we'll get in touch. We're happy to talk.
Excellent. And the links that we did discuss, I think there's a blog as well as an overview page for Tanzu Application Catalog will be included in this webinar, as well as in the post-event email, in addition to the recording of this webinar. So you can click on the Tanzu Application overview page, and there is a contact us form, I think, on the bottom where it says let's talk. So those are all the questions we have here. I don't know if you have any closing remarks, Brad, before we close out today's event.
No, I appreciate the time. Hope this was useful for everyone, and I look forward to hopefully hearing from some of you.
Excellent. So thank you, Brad. Thanks to all of you guys for joining us today. We're looking forward to having you guys at our next event. This event has been recorded and will be available on demand shortly after the end of this presentation. And have a great week, everyone. Bye.